I know that most of you are Scrum background, but actually you are mostly on in-house development. I would like to know if you have any experience or if you have experience that can share about how, as a vendor, you are going to run Agile and you're going to build your customer, as well as a buyer, how you manage a vendor who are running Agile delivery for your project. Let's look at the developers around number size around 300 people for the vendors, and your size of team as a customer maybe around 20. But can you give a share experience from the vendor, from the seller and the buyer side?
So we start with the seller.
So my company does outsourcing, so we don't really do any internal development. We're always developing and delivering for customers, and we have, so we have to be careful about the words we use. SK has used a couple of times the idea of fixed price. We sign fixed price bids all the time. Not a problem. The problem is if you say it's fixed price and it's fixed scope. Yeah, the problem is I'll even sign that kind of deal, except I know that whenever we talk about fixed scope, somebody has been sniffing glue. I have never, ever in my 30-some years in the IT industry worked on a fixed scope deal. Scope always changes. That's no problem. For a fixed price, we are giving you a box. You decide what goes in the box, but if you put one thing in the box, for it to fit, something else comes out. Price doesn't change. So fixed price, we sign fixed price bids all the time. A lot of our customers, they don't know what the destination is. And so they may pay us on a time and materials basis, also very common. One of our most agile customers, we signed an agreement with them. They had twice attempted to implement a CRM system, twice failed. They'd spent a lot of money and over a year working with some much larger IT consulting companies than us and failed. So they had little confidence in somebody else being able to do this, let alone a company of our size. We told them, so let's sign a short-term deal, 3 weeks. And at the end of 3 weeks, if we're not able to show you something that is valuable to your business, then project done. And that project went on to last 3 years.
So how you do that 3 weeks charging, I mean the bill, I'm more interested in how you
They bill it, not only did we bill them and they pay us, we continued to extend that project. And after they were comfortable that we could deliver something, the next one they didn't pay sprint by sprint. In fact, they paid for about a year's worth of work. And overall, that system to be ultimately implemented with all of the additional things that they added in, that was about a 3-year project. But it started with a 3-week sprint that we billed at the end of the sprint for. We had another customer that actually we billed them on a sprint by sprint basis. And so that's a kind of time and materials approach. But we do both, fixed cost, time and materials. I'm not afraid to do either. It's important to set the parameters, right? If you're talking about fixed cost, it's not fixed scope, except if your scope really doesn't change. If your scope doesn't change, I've never seen that happen, but if your scope doesn't change, we'll deliver it at that cost. And we'll deliver it when we said we're going to deliver it. We're quite confident in our ability to estimate given something that's truly fixed. It just, the part to me of the PMI model that breaks in this triple constraint is, again, I've never worked on a project where the scope did not change. Never. So that's a pretty weak foundation to think that we're going to estimate time or cost around. Because knowing that it's going to change means that our initial cost estimates and our initial time estimates will be wrong. I think Agile just admits that up front, and so we find other ways to work around it.
I have a question. Are you very concerned about costing when you do this kind of project from a vendor point of view? Is that your main concern?
Costing for vendor?
For vendor, is it?
I would say build, and you get they mostly like get 45 days or 90 days.
Okay.
Right? So, I mean, the cash flow is very important for vendors, and if you are in Agile, how you build and what time.
Okay. I can share a bit of my experience on consultancy line. What I have is that when we get a deal from any kind of vendors, right, we actually get not only just the IT people, we get the sales and marketing people in as well to actually know what is the main core. To actually know what's the main core purpose of this project, and then we split them out into phases. Meaning, for each phase, the one that we did was actually for each phase we say probably is 2 months. For every 2 months, right, there's probably about 8 sprints over there. Each sprint is about 2 weeks. So we actually know by the end of that 2 months, right, we know what we can deliver. But more importantly, on the first 2 phases that we will focus on is to deliver the core of the deliverables. Meaning that if, let's say, for example, if I were to build a brand new consumer site, let's say, for example, I were to build a website like Groupon, for example. And the main thing about having a Groupon site is actually to get the site up, and actually people can add new discount vouchers and such. So that is actually the main core thing you can come up with. So if you were to look at Groupon point of view, right, you have to come up with that first core implementation, which is actually someone can actually post discount vouchers over there. Sorry, I can't hear you.
So maybe I just figure it out.
Sorry.
I'm more concerned about as a buyer, how you manage and align with your vendors when we are running like outsourcing and Scrum. You need to have a product owner, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
How you manage your project as a customer when your vendor is running Agile?
You mentioned about the product owner, right? For what I experienced is that the product owner plays a very big role to liaise very closely with the customers as well. And I also felt that product owner actually needs some IT technical background, because I work with one product owner, and it's not he, it's she, all right, has come with some basic technical skills. So when she actually acts in between the customers and our IT line as well, and of course along with me as well. So she doesn't just, well, my take is that in this kind of situation, right, the product owner actually plays a very big role to understand whatever that the IT does, right, actually fulfills the business.
I understand the product owner role.
All right.
What I mean is how you plan your project as a customer. Like your one vendor are actually running Agile, so that actually you can do some outsourcing. For example, the reason I'm asking 300 developers is because you do not want to staff 300 people or maybe like 100 people in 1 month or 3 weeks, right? Because you want to outsource those things to somebody, right? And then as a buyer, you definitely as a customer, you want to be able to give the value, the requirement, the value of the organization.
Customers for change. So those are the ways you understand what's high value, and you pass those out to your vendors, ask them how long it's going to take to do them. That's all there is to management.
I do understand the product owner role in the customer side for the project management. I'm asking, like, are you saying that you just hire 5 product owners, the problem will solve, or you not need even a PM? Those kind of things.
There's no product manager in Scrum. There's no need for a project manager. A product owner has a specific role, and I will have as many product owners probably as I have teams. My experience. Project owner. Everything is related to the product owner, right? If it's related to money, in or out, that's their neck that's on the line. That's why it's called owner.
Naveen, can I take the mic? Because Vernon asked me to pass away the mic. I need to ask the moderator.
Am I the moderator or the chairperson? Yeah, sure. This is democracy.
Yes, it's very interesting, you know, like when I put myself into learn a little bit more about Scrum and all this, I think there's a couple of questions to my fellow guests there need to answer in order for the fellow panelists to answer, because none of them able to answer your question, seems like. That's why you throw question by questions. First and foremost is that, is the software going to develop for a product owner? Or is the software is actually developed for a project owner? There's make a difference out there. And third is the product owner and the software development team coming from the same organizations? The fourth, with some of you, which especially entrepreneur, tech startup like myself, sometimes we trying to develop a software for a project with a hope that that turns to become a product for us. Yeah? So that four different scenario make the so-called, the question you asked just now, plus some of you may have, more difficult. Allow me to share why I, as an entrepreneur, choose to try out the Agile and the Scrum approach versus the conventional. May I? Number one, I choose the Agile and the Scrum because I have limited budget. Okay? If I'm going to fail, I want to fail it fast. Yeah? Second thing, I have a big dream to develop, to use technology to help talent development. I may have all these requirements, but the requirement may be too difficult for the fellow project team member, for the fellow software developer to develop. Okay? If they cannot develop, I want them to tell me fast enough. Yeah? If you cannot develop, I want to tell you tell me now. The next thing, whatever I develop, I want to make sure someone want to buy it. I don't want to develop a new software product and waited for 2 years after I spent millions of dollars, then I realized that no one actually wanted this product, or there's a lot of alternative open source product out there which I cannot sell. Because of this, instead of scope driven, this one you must take it down. Instead of scope driven, I opt for time driven approach. Okay? I want a time box. In 6 months' time, I want to have the first version out. If in 6 months' time, I cannot get my first version out, it could mean my software developer cannot translate my dream into a software code. If in 6 months' time, I produce the first versions and no one wants to buy it, then it's a time for me to move on to the next journey. So I was using time-driven versus scope-driven. When I'm using time-driven, as what Vernon already pointed out, I must be willingly trade the feature, trade my scope. Beijing Olympic program is a time-driven approach, fixed time. When you have a fixed time, when deadline cannot move, you have to learn, you have to apply. Scope is now negotiable. If scope is not negotiable, that means you must have a lot of management reserve. Remember PMB? Right? You must have a lot of management reserve. When the team cannot move, when you drop your velocity, what do? You throw money to motivate them. Or you use a big penalty stick, LAD, to push them forward. So in my experience, when you want to talk about software using Scrum, software for Agile, go back to the first four questions I asked. Is the software for a clear product owner? Second question is the software for a project owner. Third is the software for a project owner with a hope of turning to become a product. So there's a few questions has been bothering me. I hope that I can share that with you. Perhaps that will start to bother you soon. Okay, done. Okay, I put the mic back. Hey, you've been speaking too much.
So I guess he's trying to confuse you more. Let's hear from people from Microsoft. I'm sure you have some tools and techniques that your global center are coming out. Maybe you can tell us what are the latest things that is happening at your site, beside from trying to get into mobile.
Okay, that's a good one. Thanks for that. I'll try to keep that, in the context of Agile. So I represent the DevTools product line in Microsoft, and we focus on what we call the application lifecycle management. And the area that we are emphasizing much more is on the Agile side. So as a tool vendor, we help companies with the consulting approach, and how do those processes can be implemented, simplified, and enforced, to among the team members across the life cycle of a software, all the way starting from the idea that to start with an idea of whether a dream whether it should be implemented. So starting from there and moving towards the planning, development, quality, and the operation side is what we focus. The challenges that most companies face in the traditional approach is that one, not using the right tools to do the right job, or using the tool but not in an effective manner. So we try to solve the problem of not using the right tools is by giving a single platform that brings everybody together. Today, software development has been always a team effort. It's not something like a sprinter job. You run, and if one person is effective, you win the race. It's more of a team game, something like a football where everybody comes together and have to play that part. Or you can think about the relay race where everybody has to run at the same speed, and pass out the baton to the next person. But that's often easily said, but it doesn't happen in reality. Teams don't communicate it very well, and especially when you do outsourcing, or you have offshore development, it gets much more challenging as well. So we started focusing on application lifecycle management a few years back, and today I can tell that we are at the top of the quadrant by Gartner did an evaluation of 16 different companies, and chose Microsoft to be one of the top leaders in the application lifecycle management phase. And what is so unique about the offering that we bring into the table is that we know customers want to move on to Agile, want to have that change, but bringing that change, as I said, it's not going to be easy, and you can't start from scratch as well. It's basically like you have to start from where you are, and plan what you want to have, and what it takes to take you there. And these things have to be implemented in the tool. So that's exactly what we have put in the application lifecycle management solution. So we allow teams to come up with the practices, as I said, that would make sense to them, create that in a form of a template, and be used across multiple projects, right? And infuse that in all the various phases of the software development lifecycle. How do you apply the Agile practices in the earliest stage of application development, in the testing phase, in the development deployment phase as well, right? So that's one thing. Second thing is today we are talking about Agile in enterprises where the teams are big, teams are often not co-located. So how do you work? And in fact, Microsoft as a software, as a global software development company, we have various R&D centers. We have developers all over the place. For my team, the Team Foundation server product, we have the decision makers in United States. Of course, Seattle being the capital of Redmond, being the hub for Microsoft, and we have development centers in China, India, testing center in India as well. So how do we follow Agile in such a manner is that we use the technology. We use what we build. We call it dog fooding, right? So for example, how can you do a daily stand-up meeting when people are work in different time zones? They can't virtually they can't come together, be physically present. So we had built in something called the team room, for example. So the team room allows people to notify without having to email each other. So whatever is being done by the team, you don't even have to have a stand-up. So whatever is done is actually captured. So if I go in and if I have a team room in my project, I know what exactly happened yesterday. Right, everything is being captured, and I can of course control to what I want to see. Right, I want to know what happened to my build. I know what requirements got changed. I want to know what are the codes changed, who changed the code, what happened to the test cases. So I can filter those things, and I have it in my thing. So it's basically about increasing the communication as well. And the third one is obviously we do all these things to know how can we go, what are the things that we are making, the mistakes that we are making, or the good things that we are doing as well. Is basically to bring that the analytical part, right? So that's something we're doing that as well. And one key area that we are focusing is, as I said, one is the agility at large, scalable agility, and the other one is bridging the DevOps gaps, right? So how do we, in Agile, bridge the gap between the business and the IT development? And now we see there's a gap between the development and the operations. So how do we bridge those gaps? So how do we ensure that it's not only we do a continuous integration and testing. How do we do a continuous deployment as well? So that's one aspect. And DevOps is also the aspect of understanding the operations people. What's being how is it being really used? So we have something called the analytical engine called the application insight that gives developers an idea of how applications are used in real time. What kind of customers I get, what kind of pages they visit, what kind of actions they do, and more importantly, what kind of environments they use. So are they using mobile? Are they using web? Are they using what kind of browsers? What kind of operating system? I get to know all these things, so I can be, as a development team, they can be very close to the business goals, and they know where exactly the next investment should be, to help the business guys. So these are some of the areas that we are working on. And thanks for the question.
Okay, so I guess you brought up a few things which I think is quite important, because I have been consulting with Vernon about his development team. I think tools is very important if you want to go agile, because most of the thing, I guess, is you need to have good tools. So continuous integration is one of them. Automated testing, configuration management. Those are the things that I think those are the challenges that you have to put in place. Then now we are talking about continuous delivery, continuous deployment. So now I think at the end of the day we are seeing shortens of the cycle between development and operations, and then continuous having feedback from how people use the systems so that you can continuous improve. So I think recently, the last year and this year, the term DevOps has become one of the hot topics, where you merge development and operations. Maybe one day there's no more development, everything is maintenance. Because the fact that we call backlog means normally we started from maintenance, we call backlog. Yes, we welcome more questions because we are time boxed this thing. So question will expand to the time given. That is Parkinson law, right? Time will be, right? So we still have, can we finish early? We are not allowed to finish early. Okay.
Done, right?
Yes, please.
Hi. Just talking to different people in the market here in Malaysia, I find talking to CTOs, to Scrum Masters, all different roles in software in Malaysia, I'm finding that there are some differences here versus the West in terms of culture and how you're going to adopt agility here. What are the challenges you've seen? I'm seeing things in resources. People leave jobs every 6 months. We find problems with, or these are real issues that we're facing. And for example, things in Scrum like stand-up meetings, all this stuff. After a few sprints, they go away because people don't want to be measured. They get lazy. They don't like somebody to tell them they're not doing their coding right. But we don't see that in the West because the framework is there from the top to make people do the right things. what are the things that we can do to help that academics and training and so forth? How can we improve that? Sorry for this.
It's not surprising that people would leave in 6 months if you think they're resources. So the first Agile Manifesto value is individuals and interaction. Treating people like people creates an interesting stickiness. Lack of understanding. The daily stand-up has nothing to do with measuring a team's performance. So if you're using it that way, you're abusing it. And if you're abusing people, they like to leave. So the gentleman earlier asked a question, and I actually took some notes because I think they're a little bit relevant here, and so I'll somewhat respond to those as well. So to me, the impediments that organizations face, and I come from the West, despite being Chinese. Yeah, and I can honestly say that the cultural gap that you perceive often is not related to East versus West. It's a lot related to companies. And so the things that I wrote down, if I were going to respond to your impediments question, very simply, I would say that there are 2 impediments to agility in most organizations, and they are culture and values. And those are company culture, not people culture. I often tell people that my view on agility is it's really a back to nature. Kids playing on a beach, self-organized and play well. You know when kids on a beach start having problems is when a parent starts telling their kid, oh, that's your bucket, Billy. You don't let Tommy play with it, right? And now you've injected some control into an environment that creates conflict. Another big thing we hear is, we can't do that here, right? And that really, I can translate that for you in case you didn't understand that language. It either means that we're too resistant to change to even try, or we're too lazy to do it here. But that has nothing to do with regional culture. It has a lot to do with organizational culture. So I see these values in Scrum. We talk about 5 values: courage, commitment, open, focus, and respect. Most organizations, honestly, don't have those things. Managers don't respect peon employees. Peon employees don't respect these bozo managers. And that lack of mutual respect creates situations where we try to implement KPIs and all other kinds of control mechanisms that demotivate people from trying to do their best. I find that if you remove those types of impediments, that you allow people, so there's theory X and theory Y. Theory X has been applied in manufacturing, which is where we learned a lot about what we know about trying to develop for a very long time. It was what SK was talking about earlier, the reward side of this project management thing. You give people more money or you beat them. I don't believe that's why people work. I believe that people are intrinsically motivated to try to do great things. What we need to do is give them great things to do instead of asking them to work on crap that we know is crap and they know is crap, but the company decides to do it anyway. And then we need to give them the latitude to actually do their job. I find that if you create an environment like that, all of those things that you're mentioning go away. But it's difficult to create that type of environment. It requires change.
Yes, I was hoping to get that feedback, but the organizational structure and culture that is present, unfortunately, it's not very flexible to change. And so the thing is, agility still is not working. And so what are the things that management, for example, can learn, or the staff even, the developers, the programmers, the testers, all these people can own their own, be responsible for what they're doing. I'm looking for, for academic gateway to help this, and I'm not fine with that here.
So if I were going to address academics alone, I think the biggest disservice that we do to students is not teach them to work as a team.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so if there was one thing I could change, it would be teaching students to work as teams instead of individuals. And also, I think education has also become somewhat impersonal. If you treat people like they're factory workers, they start acting and thinking like factory workers, and the mentality there certainly is different. I don't think it's appropriate for creative work, and I think we often do a disservice in education around that.
And again, when there are different cultures within different companies as well, one is the academics about the responsibility of the team, for example, to take on that ownership, and from management, if they can consistently show that and also deliver that message in a constructive manner, and something that a team can slowly and gradually understand. So from an academic perspective, continuous, slow, and consistent implementation and realization of self-organization and self-management, for example, that could be quite an interesting approach.
Yes?
Hey, Napin.
My mic doesn't work.
Napin, hold on. I think you pose a very, very interesting question, well, to me personally. And academic-wise, just to answer you, I don't think I can provide you any answer. But I do really like to probably understand more. Because what you mentioned, it could be a very big problem that's so difficult to solve, or maybe it's something that I've experienced before. Probably I can have a chat with you after the session. And one thing is your team distributed team? Scrum distributed team?
Right now, no.
Okay.
It's not just my team, it's just what I've seen.
Okay.
Different organizations talking different.
Okay, because it could be a cultural issues, things like that. Yeah, probably there's a lot more to discover in order to figure out.
What Bernard said about teamwork is something that I find is not working well.
Right, and to me personally, if throwing out all the academic stuff, I never seen it work. Yeah, we can educate them with, okay, look at this white paper, look at that, let's promote something. It's, maybe there's some small effect, but I really don't think this kind of thing will work. But it's really something like, we have to focus on the problem, let's do something different to change the environment or the culture, not really the culture, it's the working habit gradually in order to improve.
I just wanted to know if other people are seeing this also.
Yes and no, but I really want to understand exactly. Is it because you're saying measuring this problem by seeing people leave every 6 months?
I'm just making an example, that most people I talk to,
Mm-hmm.
and also myself,
Mm-hmm.
I am seeing this, and partly it's the organizational structure.
Right.
But I also see that the educational background is also a metaphor to make people compete more within the team instead of working outside the team.
Okay.
Competing outside instead of inside. I just wanted to know.
Yeah, because if I can pull a team of people who is really passionate, culture, language, time zone is not really a problem. If they're passionate, .NET, C#, Java is their common language, or the design architecture is their common language. They don't really care about, oh, you got the weird accents, I'm having difficulty to understand you. As long as they can look at the code, as long as they can look at the diagram, they can see what's in your mind and keep on the sparkle, keep on wanting to work with someone who is smart, someone who is passionate. That's my experience. But yeah, of course, there are culture, language, time zone, there are some challenges. But if I can pull a couple of team members within the team, which is so passionate, which is wanting to get things done, so, yeah, it will create a team dynamic which is so strong that no one can stop them.